In late October of 2014, the Municipal Housing Authority of a mid-sized coastal city in southern India began receiving complaints from a newly renovated apartment complex known as Shantivihar Residency, Block C. The building stood 7 floors tall. Above the 7th floor was nothing but a sealed concrete roof. No penthouse, no storage, no access except a steel maintenance door at the top of the stairwell, kept locked at all times. The first complaint arrived on October 19th at 11:15 at night. A retired railway worker living in apartment 7B reported hearing slow footsteps directly above his bedroom ceiling. At first he believed it was birds. Then he noticed the rhythm, each step separated by a steady pause, heavy, measured, intentional. By October 21st, 3 more residents on the top floor reported the same sound. Not scratching, not scurrying, walking, footsteps crossing from one end of the building to the other, sometimes stopping, sometimes turning, sometimes pacing back and forth for nearly half an hour. Building maintenance inspected the roof in daylight. The surface was bare concrete, 2 water tanks, rusting ventilation ducts, a low parapet wall, no trash, no footprints, no signs of anyone being there. The steel door remained locked. That night the footsteps returned, only louder. Residents described the ceiling vibrating faintly with each step. A young couple in apartment 7D reported something heavy dropping once, hard enough to rattle light fixtures. Another resident described hearing slow dragging sounds as if something was being pulled across concrete. On October 24th, someone recorded audio. The recording captured a steady sequence of dull impacts. Thump, pause, thump, pause. Each echo hollow, as though traveling through thick stone. By the end of the week, nearly every resident on the top floor had relocated their sleeping areas to lower rooms. Several reported an unexplained chill whenever the footsteps began. One woman described the air feeling thicker, harder to breathe. Local police were contacted on October 30th at 11:20 at night. 2 officers arrived and waited in the stairwell just beneath the rooftop door. At 11:27 they heard it, slow footsteps crossing directly above them. The sound was unmistakable, not animals, not mechanical, human movement. The officers unlocked the steel door and pushed it open. The roof was empty. The sound stopped instantly. Flashlights swept across every corner. Nothing moved. The concrete still held warmth from the day's sun. No one was there. They locked the door and left. At 11:41, the footsteps resumed, this time faster. Residents reported rapid movement, circling the roof, sprinting from side to side. Some described what sounded like multiple sets of feet. The following nights brought the same pattern, always beginning between 11 and midnight, always stopping the moment the roof was opened, always returning once it was sealed. By early November, residents began noticing fine dust drifting down from hairline ceiling cracks during the activity. Yet daylight inspections showed no damage, no structural stress, no visible openings. The city hired a private security firm equipped with thermal imaging equipment. On November 6th, the building was secured before nightfall. The rooftop door was locked and sealed with tamper tape. Security waited in the stairwell while residents gathered in hallways below. At 11:22, the footsteps began again. The thermal camera was aimed upward toward the ceiling. What appeared on the display was not an animal. A long vertical heat shape emerged, roughly human in size, clearly upright. It moved slowly across the roof. Leg motion was visible. Weight shifted with each step. Then a second heat shape appeared. Then a third. 3 warm forms pacing back and forth across an empty roof. Their temperatures were slightly higher than the surrounding concrete. Security footage later confirmed the roof itself remained visually vacant. No shadows, no silhouettes, only heat. At 11:35, all three shapes stopped near the center of the building. Then, one by one, they collapsed inward, shrinking rapidly, vanishing. When guards rushed upstairs, the concrete surface was unnaturally cold. Large cold patches marked where each shape had stood. The rest of the roof remained warm. Engineers were called in. They tested for underground pipes, electrical faults, trapped animals, and thermal reflection. None existed. The building's blueprint showed no hollow spaces above the 7th floor, only solid, reinforced concrete. The disturbances continued. Some nights brought a single set of footsteps, other nights brought many. Sometimes the pacing lasted minutes, sometimes hours. Once, residents counted the sound of movement for nearly 90 minutes without pause. Thermal scans repeatedly showed upright human-sized heat forms, never visible to the eye, always walking. Residents began experiencing shared dreams, standing on the roof, looking down into their apartments, watching themselves sleep. Several woke with the sensation of pressure on their chests. One resident woke to dust falling steadily from the ceiling, as if weight were pressing from above. On November 18th, a security guard witnessed multiple heat figures clustered directly above the stairwell door. They stood still, grouped tightly, as if waiting. The guard resigned the next morning. The final incident occurred on November 23rd. At 11:14 at night, thermal cameras detected more than a dozen heat shapes moving across the roof. Some pacing, some circling the water tanks, some stopping directly above specific apartments. Below, the sound of footsteps was overwhelming. Residents described it as a crowd walking overhead, one heat shape separated from the others. It moved slowly toward the stairwell entrance, stopped directly above the door. Its temperature reading was warmer than the rest, nearly identical to a living human body. The stairwell camera captured the metal handle trembling slightly. Not from wind, not from vibration, from pressure, as if something was testing it. No one opened the door. At 11:29, every heat shape vanished simultaneously. The roof fell silent. The footsteps never returned. The building resumed normal life. Families moved back into their bedrooms. The case was officially closed as unexplained thermal interference combined with structural acoustics. But months later, during a land audit tied to a nearby highway expansion project, old property documents surfaced. Before the apartment complex existed, the land had hosted a temporary labor camp in the early 1990s. Records showed a late-night fire swept through the camp during construction. Official reports listed 3 fatalities. A handwritten note attached to the contractor's ledger stated, "Over a dozen workers missing after collapse, bodies not recovered." The camp had stood exactly where the building's rooftop now sat vertically above the ground. Layer upon layer of concrete raised over the site. The final engineering report included one overlooked line. Thermal signatures observed matched adult human proportions. Below it, written faintly in pen, movement consistent with walking behavior. The report offered no explanation for why the heat always appeared above the highest floor, or why it followed the same paths night after night, or why it gathered near the exit. Only that something was still moving, where nothing should have been at all.